call sign other. And our last one for this hour is going to be for a Yaesu FT3DR. And this one is donated by Gigaparts, which is one of our gold sponsors this year for Hamcation.
All righty. Folks, welcome to Hamcation 2021's Technology for D-Star. Our platinum sponsor is ICOM America. So if everybody could stand by, I have a little commercial for you. Let's see here.
It's going to be Michael Bannigan, KJ4UDO. And that's it for this hour. If you come back at 12 o'clock, we'll be having some more prize drawings. Thank you.
Well, D-Star takes it one step farther and allows you to use call signs to either talk to somebody or as control commands for your repeater. ICOM.
Okay, John, it's all yours.
All right, good morning. Hope you can see this morning. And I'm John, WB4QDX. I'm located part of the Georgia D-Star group. And also joining me, coming in from the previous webinar, is Ray Novak from ICOM. Are you seeing video from me, James?
Yeah, I see you.
Okay, because I'm just seeing your screen still in there. Okay. We're going to cover a few things this morning. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you. All right, looks like I'm on there. All right, good morning, everyone, and we hope you'll enjoy this. We've got a few things that have been happening over the last year since well, hey, last year about this time when we were in Orlando, a few new items have come out, D-Star capable radios. And since Ray is on, he can keep me honest on these, but we'll be talking about some of these. I'm the proud owner of an IC 9700 and a 705, looking forward to the ID 52A. I'd hope we'd have one by Hamcation time, but looks like some parts delays in Japan, and hopefully that'll get taken care of sometime soon. Also talk about a new generation of repeaters.
So when you log into the contest and it's taking you to Yaesu.
All right, we'll talk about operating the new radios a little bit, programming and updating memories, because that seems to be an area that still has a lot of questions. And then we want to talk about a special event coming up that I know you'll want to join us on, to celebrate the end of the series Last Man Standing in KA6 LMS, the Last Man Standing Club Station. We'll be having a special event during the end of March to celebrate the last taping of the show. So we'll talk a little bit about that this morning as well. You probably saw, and Ray, keep me honest, jump in here if you need to, just to quickly go over some of the features. The 9700 is a remarkable radio. It's all mode, tri-band, 2 meter, 70 centimeter, and also the 1200 band, 23 centimeter. It is direct sampling on 2 meters and 70 centimeters. It is just a single conversion up at the 1.2 gigahertz band, 100 watts on 2 meters, 75 watts on 70 centimeters, and 10 watts, 23 centimeters. Many of you who have been in D-Star for a number of years will remember the ID1 as the first radio that came out that did the 23 centimeter band. And this is compatible with a lot of the same features that the ID1 had, and then the 9100. It has a very nice 4.3-inch touchscreen display. You'll notice if you've seen these in person, they look almost identical in form factor to a 7300. I don't think that was a mistake or unintentional, but you can put two of them side by side, a 9700 and a 7300, and wow, they look almost the same. You have to be careful and see which radio you're on. One of the nice features that has come out with the later generation of D-Star radios, here the 9700 has it, you can decode two D-Star signals simultaneously. So if you're looking at the display on the picture, you could decode a VHF signal on the one VFO and a second one on 70 centimeters or 23 centimeters. So you could decode two D-Star signals at the same time. Now this radio's got a lot of very, very neat features, an Ethernet port, RJ45 connector right on the back. And you can do a lot of things with that, remote control of the radio. That's handy for connecting to do NTP or time setting on your radio. USB audio and control. Wow, you can interface the world through the USB. An SD card, and that's handy. And I've probably talked about this in previous seminars. The SD card is really handy for several functions. One is it's easy to do firmware updates through the SD card, but also you can record QSOs. But what I really like about it, you can save several different complete settings of the radio within that. So it's really handy on portable radios, but if you take this out, you want to have a configuration that totally focuses on repeaters in a certain area or certain things for satellite functionality. You know, those are things that can be saved and easily brought into the radio from the SD card. 2500 DR memories. You don't need much else once you get up that high. Although I was just looking at the D-Star info site right before coming on the webinar here, and there's new repeaters coming on all the time. So be sure and check that out at dstarinfo.com. And we'll talk more about updating your memories and some functionality that you can get for all of the D-Star radios on that site. We talked about the functionality similar to the ID1. So you have the higher speed digital data, DD mode, that will give you up to about 128 kilobits of data communication on 23 centimeters. When I first got this radio, we were able to get a couple of them together also with an ID1 and do the data transfer at the higher speed. And that is very functional, very useful, especially for something like last mile, where you can get internet to a point, but I need to go just a little bit further. And I could extend that out and actually extend my network. It's not as fast as a lot of things you would see. We're spoiled with the cell phones now and 4G, 5G data and beyond. But if you need 128 kilobits data rate, that becomes very, very handy. And also satellite operation. Now, operating the 9700, it's a little different. It kind of surprised me, and I had a little bit of a learning curve with it because it's configured with two VFOs, one for VHF and then the other one for UHF and 23 centimeters. So you have to remember you can't do VV or UU. You have to set it up for one on VHF, one on UHF, or something like that. And one could be a hotspot, for example, which I do very regularly with mine as well. Again, simultaneously decode two D-Star signals, one on each VFO. Preamps, this works great for weak signal operation. DD mode. Again, the satellite mode is very handy. I have not done any satellite work, but I see how you can set it up where you can have the uplink and downlink frequencies, either in VU or UV mode. And then as you move the dial, it actually changes the tracks between the two VFOs for Doppler effect. And that works very well. And then there's 99 satellite memories for that. The biggest thing to get used to with the 9700 is that you basically have a VHF VFO and a UHF 23 centimeter second VFO as well. And that's a little bit different than just your dual receive radios that you used to see. So a little bit about the 9700. I use it. It's on my desktop right here beside me. And it is my primary radio for all different modes, but is my primary D-Star radio in the shack. All right, moving on. And by the way, I will mention, Ray is clapping his hands. I'll jump in and say something, Ray, if you need to.
No, go ahead. I'm not interrupting. I'm only here for the Q&A session where everybody tries to stump the chumps.
Oh, well, that shouldn't be too hard. And we will hold our Q&A. We'll kind of be watching the chat, and it's great to see all the folks here. It looks like we've got 463 participants. Wow. Truly amazing. But we'll hold our Q&A toward the end, but if we see something over in the chat, we'll try to address that as well. Let me move on to the 705. Wow. Now, Ray will give me a hard time about this because a lot of radios that my first look at them, I'll go, I don't know whether I'm looking for that radio or not. And I think—
Well, wait a minute. Last year at Orlando, you, Ed, and Amy walked by the booth. I told you, come here, you got to see this. And what was your response?
Before or after? Before is, I don't know that I want a radio like that. I don't need another radio like that.
Okay, I'll leave you alone now.
But then, obviously, I like that. And I'll show you a couple of things about this in a little bit. All mode, tri-band, 6 meters, 2 meters, 70 centimeters. It's a very compact design, and I'll show you mine when we get through some of this here. Very compact design, makes it great for portable, POTA, SOTA operation, whatever you want to do, or just put it in your shack. It's 5 watts with an internal battery, and that battery is the same as the ID51. Ray, correct me, is it going to be the same for the ID52?
Will what be the same, sir? I'm sorry.
The battery. The battery that's used in the 705.
Well, yeah. Well, no. I take it back. The battery pack that comes on the 705 is a BP272. That is optional for the ID51 and the ID52.
But the battery that is on an ID51 will work in the 705, correct?
No, it will not. The reason why is it does not provide the current that you need for the 705. So
but I'll ask conversely, does the battery that comes with the 705?
The BP272 that comes with the 705 will work fine with the ID51 and ID52.
Okay.
That is the higher capacity optional battery for those.
Very good. Very good. The 705, RF direct sampling, touchscreen. And you'll notice the display on the 75, the whole menu system looks an awful lot like a 7300 or a 9700. A lot of similarities. So I'll say hats off to ICOM on this, that they've kind of standardized on a screen's layout and menu system that makes it fairly easy in going between radios. A lot of the same features, micro SD card, and it is a micro SD card because this is a very small radio, USB, and it is a micro USB, I believe. And again, 2500 DR memories, very handy for D-Star. Bluetooth, wireless LAN. So if you get caught out without a cable, you can always connect via Bluetooth or wireless LAN. Now let's talk a little bit about operating the 705. Things I really like about it, you can connect by any number of means to do that. And that is easy for connecting in, like if you want to do DRATs on D-Star, if you want to do any of the other digital modes, if you want to use the ICOM Android app for sending pictures, for sending text, etc. Also, it's great for logging. So if you're whatever you're using on that, N3FJP, HRD, Ham Radio Deluxe, any of those is great. This is a perfect rig for all digital modes, being at 5 watts on the internal battery, 10 watts on an external DC source. One thing I found that is very handy to have is because it has the standard thread for a camera type tripod on the bottom of it. There are some things that are available for it. I found a couple of different tripods, and I'll show you one of mine here in a minute. That's handy just for setting it up on the desk or doing any other things that you need with it. And another thing I will advise you, because it's got a BNC antenna connector on the side of the radio, which I'll show you in a little more detail. I would advise you to get a little small pigtail, like an RG8X pigtail that goes from the BNC male to connect to the radio to an SO239. And that way you're not trying to hook, you're not trying to use one of the all-in-one adapters that would put some strain on that antenna connector.
Hey, John.
Yes, sir.
That's a beautiful case that adds a lot of weight to your package. You should really take a look at Ham Radio Crash Course's What I Found in My Backpack video with the IC705 and the LC192. You'd be very surprised what all he got in that thing, as well as the top 10 items that all people should have for emergency situations. And it will save you about 15 pounds.
Probably so. And a lot of it is going to depend on how you use it. The backpack, since it came out when the 705 was introduced, is a great option. And especially if you're going to do something like summits on the air where you're hiking in, that is a great option for that. For my particular use, I'm going to be set it up at a park bench or something. So the main thing I was looking for is let's take it in as quickly as possible. And there's my setup. I know everyone likes when they're using these waterproof, sturdy cases with the foam inserts. Look at the Pelican cases. They're the best, no doubt about it. But I have Harbor Freight nearby, and you can always mail order with them. Their line of cases look almost identical to the Pelican cases, but I think this was right around $30, somewhere in that area. And then you just pinch out the foam you need for that. So while I'm on the 705, I'm going to reach around and grab mine, and I'm going to drop the screen for just a second. Let me make sure I know how to do that. Stop sharing. And I'll go back to my photo here. Now here's my 705. Love this little radio. And then on the end here, I wanted to talk about, let me see how well you can, I doubt if you'll be able to see this on the camera, but right near one of the things near the bottom, I don't think the light's going to let me do that, is the micro USB. And then on the other end, you'll see, I think you can see it there with the BNC connector right there on top. And so what I do with that for strain relief, I'll reach down in my kit here. I found a company that makes a great little pigtail, 12-inch pigtail. And as you can see, it's a BNC on one end and an SO239. So when I just put that on the radio here, I'm not putting any strain, I get in front of the camera, not putting any strain on the BNC connector for whatever I'm hooking up there. So that was one of the things I think that was very, very handy. This makes a great little portable D-Star radio. I'm going to go back to my screen. Okay. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions. I did see someone saying they didn't think this was going to be an ICOM commercial, but what I wanted to convey in this is how we're using it. And I'll get into a little bit more of how we operate that on D-Star. Coming soon, the ID52A. Don't have any idea on when it will be available and price, but it took the ID51, which I think is one of the best radios that for handheld operation that has been out and made it better. So dual D-Star decoding. It has the slightly larger but very good color display. Where this works great for D-Star, not only D-Star voice, is the way that you connect to it. Many of us, and you've heard me say this in other seminars, to run DRATs or to do programming of it, it required either the ICOM cable, which was I think it was a 3-pin, like a regular phone or plug type, but this has the micro USB for integrating to it, and that's going to be very handy because most people will have that cable to go back and connect to the laptop for doing DRATs, which many of you know I'm a fan of that. It does have the built-in GPS. So while I don't have an ID52 in hand, hoping to sometime soon, one of the things I've noted, or a few things I've noticed on it, is the louder audio output to the speaker, a little more powerful audio amp, a very high contrast color display. I'm really going to like the micro USB connector because I do a lot of interfacing to these, especially for portable D-Star and other operation. The Bluetooth for data connection and external speaker mic, that's going to be very handy too. So those are a couple of things that I think we'll be able to expect with the 52. Very much looking forward to getting mine. I think Ray may have introduced in the previous one the next generation of D-Star repeaters. While a lot of folks are building homebrew repeaters, it's still a very quick, fairly easy way to get a D-Star repeater on the air. I just saw from something just a minute ago that the new repeater is going to be called the RP4010, 4010. Is that correct, Ray? I believe you had mentioned that or saw that from a previous slide.
IDRP 2010, IDRP 4010. I'm sorry, IDRP 2010V, IDRP 4010V, and ID 1200V for voice and D for data.
So there will be a 23 centimeter version as well.
Yes, and it's switchable between DV mode and DD mode.
Very good, very good. So I stand corrected on my slide here. This will be a mixed mode, so it will run wideband FM, narrowband FM, D-Star. As I understand now, we don't know a lot about it yet, but this is something that's on the near, on our scopes for near use. Will be coming out soon, I think. I'm not sure of the settings that you'll put in for whether you're operating a single mode like wideband FM or only D-Star, or if it's in mixed mode. My guess is that what you put in, it will put out. So if you come in on D-Star, it will go out on D-Star. We'll have a built-in controller. Now that's a change from the previous generation. So if you're only using it for local use, that's great. Now, one of the things I understand that the built-in controller actually operates it as a local repeater only. So if you're wanting to connect to reflectors, go ahead.
Internal controller can be connected to US root, but it's very rudimentary.
Okay.
And we'll probably cover that a bit more in Q&A at the end. So okay. Sorry to interject.
Very good. Very good. One of the features that I understand will be in the new repeaters is a built-in LTE modem compatible with AT&T. And there are cell plans out there that have a static IP address that will be available from AT&T. So that's going to solve a lot of connectivity problems where that you want to connect to reflectors or link repeaters or anything else. It's a 2 rack unit size chassis. I'm understanding that the availability is sometime around late March, early April. Don't know anything about pricing yet, but that's the next generation of repeaters coming out from ICOM. And as I was saying, I noticed just before I started this session that the new repeaters coming up all the time are, well, there's new ones every day coming up. So still a lot of growth in D-Star. And I also see a lot of people registering on there as well. So D-Star is continuing to grow. All right, we'll have more Q&A or an opportunity for Q&A here soon. Let me switch gears a little bit because I still see in all the forums, and I try to be a part of a lot of those and monitor what's going on. If you look at the questions that are in these, I'm seeing a lot on programming, and it still amazes me the number of people that do not use DR mode, that they're trying to program their radio much as they did for non-D-Star radios, and a separate memory for a repeater or a group of memories for a repeater. And then what they do with that is just change, make it more difficult to change how I want to connect to a reflector or any other mode, or disconnect, or whatever they want to do. So I will point you, as I try to always do, to the dstarinfo.com site. And if you'll look on the list of tabs at the top, you'll see one tab called Downloads. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but Download tab. And if you go there, you'll see this screen. Now, it'll give you a choice of downloading for either a region or downloading for specific areas. And I really do enjoy doing that for separate cities, especially for a portable. You will see the opportunity that I can fill my memories. So first off, you're selecting the radio, you're selecting your location, you select the radio, and then it will know how many DR memories are available for you in your repeater list. And then you can set some parameters, and then you can download a list, which comes out as a CSV file. Now you can do 2 things with that. One is you can use like the ICOM software, programming software, and import that CSV into the software and then load that into your radio. And then you can also make changes that way. Or a very simple thing to do is to write the CSV file to the SD card. And you need to make sure that the SD card in the radio is pre-formatted, and that sets up a set of folders for you. Put it in the folder, and then on the fly, and I've used this example many times, I get on a plane, fly to Chicago. I get in Chicago. I've saved a list from this dstarinfo.com site of all the repeaters within, to fill up my memories, 2,500 memories centered around Chicago. And these can also include FM repeaters. So not only D-Star, but FM, and you can select those for most of the current generation, all the current generation, and some of the earlier D-Star radios. And then you import that, and then you loaded the memories for that area. And then finding a repeater, nearest repeater through the internal GPS function or any other factor of selecting repeaters makes it pretty easy. So I concentrate on that. And just to really show you how easy it is, if I can switch screens, let me see if I can do that. See how quickly I could do that, because I want to have that. Let me see, I'm going to drop this. Bear with me just a second, I apologize. And I thought I had it up, but I'll quickly go to dstarinfo.com, and we will see quickly as it will come up. Thought I had it loaded already. Well, thought I did. Coming up here, but let me go back to the other share. I'll move this over here and come back to that a little later. There we go. Get back down here. But you can see from the screen here, you'll set your location up, select your radio. You can leave some empty memory slots at the end. And what I use that for is for programming hotspots. That works very well. So that's a very nice way to keep your radio updated. You do have a list of many different ones. Let me pull this. I think I can pull this over here now. There it is. Everyone's seeing that, I believe. So if I go to downloads and DR mode radios, you'll see I'm going to enter a location. So let's say I put in, you can put in a zip code, anything you want. I'll put in, I use Chicago as an example before. It will look that up. You see it's found it here. It puts the Latin long Maidenhead grid example. I'm going to select a radio. And let's see, I'm doing this for the 705. And it says standard memories, knows what I have. I leave, I'll do 20% FM because I want this mostly to be D-Star, and I'm going to download that. So what it's going to give me is a file, a CSV file. And then if I open that CSV file, you'll see here's the format of the file. And if I go down, see, I've got, by selecting that large number, I've got them from all over. And as I get down into the United States, see, they're even sorted out by Midwest or Southeast. And you'll notice many of these right now are the FM repeaters. And then we get down into the D-Star repeaters. So if I go to, let me see, I was doing this based on Chicago. So looking at Northeast, for example, I get a lot of D-Star repeaters. And that, if I import that into the radio and I'm in DR mode, I can find the nearest repeater because they are geocoded, and they are available to you. Either find the nearest FM, D-Star, or any repeater. And there are FM repeaters as well as D-Star repeaters. And that list is through a shared arrangement with Repeater List. So that is available as well. So it becomes a standard CSV file. Here's your standard repeaters, FM repeaters here. It has the tone information. So that information comes from Repeater Book. And then the D-Star repeaters, if everyone will go on to dstarinfo.com and maintain it is a self-generated list of D-Star repeaters, but it is, I think you'll find one of the most accurate out there. All right. Having said that, I think that's fairly straightforward. And of course, there's a lot of other resources that are available to you on dstarinfo.com, DRATs, and Ray mentioned Ham Radio Crash Course. Tonight, I'll be a guest on Ham Radio Crash Course talking about DRATs. And if you haven't tried that, a lot of people will say, oh, DRATs is not being updated, but there are a few people that are have now assumed taking over development on that. So I think DRATs will continue to go, and you can operate that with or without a D-Star radio. So let me get out of that. Okay. Let's talk about something coming up very soon, next month. K6LMS, Last Man Standing. One of the great radio television shows out there that has had some exposure to amateur radio. And thanks to John Amadeo, one of the producers of Last Man Standing, there's been that focus, and you will always see the active and working station in the corner of Mike Baxter, the character's office in Outdoor Man. So to celebrate the ninth and the final season, there's a week-long special event which will begin at 00 UTC on March 24th, and it will run through 2359 on March 30th. And that coincides with the final day of shooting. They'll be operating all modes, all bands, and KA6 LMS QSL cards will be available. There'll be bonus stations spelling out LMS one by ones. Stations from all call areas will be operating as KA6 LMS slant 0 through 9. On Saturday, and I believe that is the what date is that? I think that's the 30th. On the Saturday, there will be on-stage radios. The radios that actually are operating on the set will be operating on 40 meters. And then on Saturday of that week, there will be 2 D-Star operations. We invite you to join. There's always been a very large group of D-Star contacts whenever several people have operated from the set. I've had the opportunity to do that once myself. Ed, WA4YIH, and KE4IKF, his XYL, have operated a time or two from out there as well. So on Saturday at 1700 UTC on reflector 12 alpha, the Papa repeater system will be operating there as KA6 LMS. And then starting at 1900 UTC on reflector 30 Bravo, the Georgia D-Star group will be operating, and we will be QSLing all the contacts there. So we invite you to join. Go to this site that I list on here, gsbarc.org/LMS, and look forward to making a lot of contacts. To celebrate the final season leading up to the taping of Last Man Standing. I see someone in the chat from GSBARC running this event, so very thankful to them for organizing all this. And I see KA6 LMS will also be on satellite. So wow, this is going to be a great event. And I hope there's more shows that are able to come out that will give people some exposure to amateur radio. A lot of you will remember a lot of the different episodes. There's the one with Mandy getting on the radio and talking to all the veterans about World War II and different things out there when Tim Allen as Mike Baxter got on for celebrating Thanksgiving, and that was also featured in the show. So with that kind of comes to the end of our session, and we'll come back on here, and I guess we'll open it up, James, for some Q&A. And looks like there's a lot of chat in there. So James, I'll leave it up to you how you want to handle the Q&A. Or
Hey,
Ray,
John.
if you want.
John, I've actually been answering some of the questions in the Q&A forum, but here's one that I came to that I think would be real good for you to answer, and maybe do a share screen to answer it with. Basically, Ralph is saying that the repeater or the gateway that he registered with is no longer online. How can he check to see if he is still registered? And if he's not, how can he register to be back into the network?
Good question. Because like everything, there are some people from time to time that repeaters go off the air, they lose their site, whatever the case may be. A couple of sites that I will point out to you, and let me bring those up here, that are, you can check the status of your registration. One of them is if you go to query.ke5bms.com and put in your call sign, it will change. It will check and tell you what the status is. That's query.ke5bms.com. Now I'm going to give you another one that is a very good site, and this is run by a lot of the folks that have been involved with keeping the gateways, the trust server, and everything up on the air. If you'll go to dstar.info, dstar.info/query, that's a great way to check and see if your call is registered there, and it will check. Now, there's a great group that is available that monitors DSTAR registrations. And one thing I'll mention about that is that that's a voluntary effort, and that's been going on for years. And one of the things that resolved a lot of the registration issues, a site was created called regist.dstargateway.org, or registration.dstargateway.org, was created a few years ago, and you can register there. Someone is monitoring that, and if you register there, you're going to get approved. They'll send you complete instructions on completing the second step, which is to complete your registration by adding the terminal. Or you can address any questions to DSTAR registration with them, and you'll see that on the web page there. So if you go to regist.dstargateway.org.
I just posted that in the regular chat.
You got it. That's good. That will be a big help in checking if you're registered. Let me mention one thing while we're on that subject, Ray, real quick. Registration is not a requirement to get on DSTAR. It is very helpful. You can get on DSTAR the day that you buy your radio, turn it on, get in DR mode, find the nearest repeater. But what it does allow by registering is that you have access to other features, like you can link to repeaters, you can reflectors, you can unlink, and opens up more functions. So it is a good idea to register, but it is not an absolute requirement to get on day one. All right. Next question. Ray, you're monitoring that.
Randy Hall asked, you asked for Chicago. Seems like it takes a fair amount of editing to get rid of so much. Any other way to get a more focused list? And I'll take that one because I recently did something on my DSTAR radios using that. I would download sections that I wanted to go to, whether I traveled. I mean, the state of Texas has got more repeaters, analog and DSTAR repeaters, than I've got repeaterless slots. So what I did is I opened it up in an Excel spreadsheet under CSV, did my editing, my sorting, and everything in that, which took me no more than 10 minutes to make that change. And then I saved it again as a CSV file to the SD card. I've actually made several of these and used an example in one of the lists that I typed an answer to. Is I make a yearly trek out to Quartzsite, Arizona, to attend Quartz Fest. So what I did is I filtered out the Texas through California list and put just the ones that would fit in my radio's repeater list. And then I would use the repeater scan function as I'm driving along, and it would automatically group my scan list based on those repeaters that were in the geographical area of where I was driving.
Good choice there.
I guess I got to come up with another question.
No, I saw one that I'll comment on,
Okay.
on hotspots. Danny Lane asked, is it possible to run two different hotspots at two different locations, like home and a cabin, simultaneously with a single registration, or is this a violation? The main thing that we're looking for with that, and I know the folks that are running the reflectors, where you've got to be careful is if you're running two hotspots at the same location, let's say your home, and that's going to look like one public IP address. Now they may, if you had them on different, if you had the hotspot on the same frequency, both hotspots on the same frequency, but they were connected to different reflectors, you can get in trouble with that. So to address Danny's question, if they're located at two different locations, therefore you have two different IP addresses that the network sees, yes, that is okay.
Hey, John, got a follow up from Ralph. He says that he's showing that he's still registered, but he wants to change gateways. If you're showing registered in the network, there's no reason to change gateways. Gateways is just where your registration is tied to. So it sounds like what happened is, I think, John, I think you guys, along with the US root server team, actually got all the registrations and put it into one database before the last major cleanup. So a lot of people that are on dead gateways might still be registered. Is that correct?
Not exactly, but your first comment is 100% on. Once you're registered, you're good. The only reason you would need to come back to your registration is that if you want to add another terminal, like WB4QDX space B or space C. And normally that's not needed. It's a very, very small percentage of the time that something is needed like that. However, if you ever have any questions on that, you can always address them to, I think it's dstar-registration at dstargateway.org. If you go to regist.dstargateway.org, you'll see an email address there that you can go to and ask any questions. Where that normally comes up is if someone changes their call, they get a vanity call. Do you need to change your registration? Yes, you do. Go ahead and register your new call, notify either the repeater administrator or Regist of your old call sign once you have everything programmed over in your radio with the new call, and then they will delete the old one. If they don't delete the old one, no problem. Just change once you're registered with the new call, your vanity call or whatever, then go ahead and program your radios in the my field, my station field, and then you're good to go with the new call, and that will show up in your radio, or you program your radio to show the new call. But that's all it takes if your call changes.
Okay, John, a couple of questions about the UHF to BNC pigtail. Where did you get it? Do you have a model number handy?
I don't know whether I've got a model number handy. It was I got it off of Amazon, and there's a company in South Georgia, I think they're near Albany, Georgia, that sells these on Amazon, but it is a very high quality cable. I don't know whether you can see it, but they dress it very well. It's good quality RG8X, but it's very flexible, and they're very well built. They're not very expensive. They were like $10 or something like that, but to get a commercially made, swept, everything, that was very good. I like that.
Got a question here. Mark Fink asks, what's the best wideband backpack antenna for the 705? I really don't have a suggestion because of the requirement of a counterpoise. I think Josh Nass on Ham Radio Crash Course did a review of a backpack antenna that he recommends. So you might want to check his YouTube channel for that one. Bill Brady asks, do you still need a computer with the new gen of repeaters for D-Star software, G3, for example? Yes and no. The next new generation repeaters have an internal server. They will link up to the US root gateway. So you do not need to do that. But if you want to do some of the wonderful add-on software packages like the D Plus from that enables the DVAPs, DV dongles, reflectors, or the IRC-DDB software, you will need an external computer to do that. So you would configure it to be used with an external server with any of those things. The internal gateway is great if you're setting up. John, you guys do a few events where you support emergency communications. You would be able to do DRATs, and voice communications, taking those repeaters and using only the internal gateway server. But you can go either way with those. Another one, Dave Welty, is the 9700 full duplex in D-Star mode. I want to access George's full stack, say port C, and listen to port B or port A. And he says he hasn't had any luck.
Remember that in the 9700, there's a VHF VFO and a UHF VFO. So if you had hotspots running on, if you're running on hotspots, or had two different repeaters, like a VHF and a UHF repeater that you were connected through, you could do it that way. But for example, you have one hotspot, you could not do that, because that's the one thing that is takes a little bit of getting used to on the 9700 is that.
Hey, John, I think what he's talking about is he's listening to a repeater, a full stack repeater, and he goes in on port B and he wants to listen to port C while he's transmitting on port B. I know you got full duplex in satellite mode, but I haven't tested it. And unfortunately, I don't have one on my desktop to test and see. So maybe that's an email question for later on.
Guys, I have to interrupt. It is time to shut you down. John, I appreciate you. Ray, you too.
All right. Thank you for having us on.
73 to
Orlando.
y'all.
We look forward to coming to Orlando next year.
Thank you for supporting us.